perhaps the person that has known me best, and not only over these 30 years, but over the course of my whole life. It's someone that I met in 1977. And again, recently I was having a phone conversation with her and talking about my experience in these days and these weeks and months that I've been in primal therapy. And I expressed to her what I've expressed to other people recently, that these last several months have been the most peaceful and happy and enjoyable days of my entire life. And I say that without exaggeration. And I attribute that to primal therapy. Both what it has enabled me to feel and experience, how it's enabled me to feel within myself, but then also the freedom that it's brought me to do many different things. For example, I've started to take dance lessons. In the course of my whole life, I've never felt free enough or comfortable enough to dance. But in the last several months, I've started to take lessons and go to classes and such. And so I was talking with her about that. You know, the meaning of life is to experience joy. And another of my favorite sayings is that joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. That's what God wants for us. And yet, with all of my religious experience and formation and upbringing, my good friend of 31 years hadn't really heard joy in my voice, in me, until more recently. And I attribute that to what primal therapy has meant and done and been for me. So that's the second story or anecdote that I think gives good expression to what primal therapy has meant or has been or has done for me. And when I was a little kid, probably around 4 or 5, I went to my room as I was told, but then I stayed there for about 50 years. And that's the image that came to me in that individual session. And I remember as I said it, I thought, whoa, God, listen to what I just said. And so I thought about that and stayed with that, how emotionally, personally, I have in so many ways stayed in my room for the past 50 years. And again, even though I've always been in very public positions, in many ways I've been in my room by myself. And over those 50 years, I not only kept with me the madness or the sadness or the upset that got me sent to my room in the first place, but then that madness and sadness and isolation grew for having to be in my room all those years. And I'm 56 now, and so 2 years ago I was 54. I figure it was about 4 or 5 years when I went to my room and stayed there. And it was 2 years ago that I started primal therapy. And so I say that it's been through or in and through therapy that I've become willing and able to come out of my room in many ways, so that I don't have to stay mad and sad in my room. And it's that sort of staying in my room that has kept me on the margins of relationships, of involvements of different sorts, even in my public life and ministry as a priest. And one of the examples of how I have been willing and able to come out of my room that just occurs to me is my very willingness and ability to do this interview. Years ago, I avoided this sort of thing just very consistently and insistently. First of all, because I thought, well, what do I have to say? You know, what my stuff isn't that important. It gets sent to its room. But then also just as a continuation of my privacy about myself, I wouldn't say this kind of stuff at all, let alone in front of a camera, in a public sort of way. So that image of, I went to my room as I was told and then stayed there for 50 years, I think expresses well why I came to primal therapy, because even though I didn't think of it in those terms, in some way I knew I wanted to get out of my room. And what I had learned of primal therapy through reading Art's books stirred in me the sense of promise or hope that, yeah, there is a way to get out. And that that's certainly been borne out in my experience of it over the last couple of